Okay, so we're diving into something pretty amazing today. I think you're going to like this one. We're talking about fog harvesting.
Fog harvesting.
Yeah, literally capturing moisture from fog, like to create usable water.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And get this, the research we're looking at, it takes place in the Atacama Desert in Chile,
Wow.
one of the driest places on Earth.
I mean, that's fascinating. That's incredible. It seems almost impossible.
I know. It's
Yeah.
like, how? But, I mean, we're talking about a region that sees like less than a millimeter of rainfall annually.
It's crazy, yeah. And their primary source of water, ancient aquifers, which, as you can imagine, are being depleted super fast.
Yeah, and it's a critical situation, especially for those 10,000 people living in those informal settlements in Alto Hospicio.
Right.
So that's the city that's kind of at the heart of this research.
Got it.
So to guide our deep dive today, we've got a recent scientific study. It's from Frontiers in Environmental Science.
Okay.
And then there's this accompanying article that kind of breaks it down a little bit more.
Makes sense.
So I guess the question is, can this fog harvesting idea really work?
Right.
Like, is it legit? And if so, how much water are we talking about?
Yeah.
And what could it mean for all kinds of communities that are struggling with water scarcity all over the world?
Well, I think the really amazing thing about fog harvesting is just how simple it is.
Yeah.
So just picture, like these large mesh nets, right?
Okay.
That are strategically placed to just, capture these tiny water droplets from the fog.
Oh.
And it's kind of like a spider web, collecting morning dew.
Oh, that's a great analogy. I like that.
It's so simple. There's no complex machinery. You don't need any kind of external energy.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
I love that. It's such a simple concept,
Yeah.
but it has the potential to be so impactful. So what did the researchers in Alto Hospicio find?
The results are really promising.
Okay, good.
They found that they could potentially harvest anywhere from like a smaller amount, like 0.2 liters per square meter each day,
Okay.
to like a much more impressive 5 liters per square meter
Wow. Okay.
every day. And that's not all. During peak fog season, they found that number could jump up to like 10 liters per square meter.
10 liters.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So to put that in perspective, like imagine just your small backyard
Right.
producing enough water like to meet your daily needs
Amazing.
just from fog.
Yeah.
That's wild.
That's pretty incredible.
Just picturing like a family, their water needs being met by like their own little backyard fog collector.
Yeah.
That's crazy. What would that mean for the residents in Alto Hospicio?
I mean, it could be completely transformative for them. We're talking about having clean drinking water, the possibility of, watering their gardens,
Oh, wow.
green spaces, and even, the potential for some urban farming.
Oh, that's cool.
So the study suggested that if you had like 17,000 square meters of mesh,
Okay.
that could provide enough water for the entire slum population in the city for a week.
17,000 square meters. I mean, that is a decent amount of space.
It is.
But the impact is potentially so huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I remember reading that this study went beyond just drinking water.
Right.
Like they were looking at how this fog water could be used for, green spaces, for urban green spaces.
Yeah.
But also for food production, like through soil-free agriculture.
Exactly. Imagine those arid landscapes, right?
Yeah.
Like transformed into these vibrant, like self-sufficient communities, all just using the power of fog.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And the study estimated that with just 110 square meters of mesh,
Okay.
you could irrigate all of the city's green spaces
What?
for a whole year.
That's amazing. It feels like we're talking about turning something like that seems impossible
Right.
into something tangible, into a reality.
Absolutely. And it's, it is a really inspiring concept.
Yeah.
But I think, we do need to acknowledge that fog harvesting isn't like a one-size-fits-all solution.
Of course.
It requires some pretty specific geographic and atmospheric conditions to be effective.
That makes sense. I mean, fog isn't exactly like, an abundant resource everywhere.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about in terms of ideal conditions?
So you're looking for like coastal areas
Okay.
where wind can like consistently carry that fog inland.
Oh, okay.
And you need some elevated landforms to be able to place those fog collectors. And then another thing is, fog is often seasonal.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So even in places where the conditions are ideal, you're going to need some pretty, large-scale storage solutions
Right.
to make sure you have that reliable water supply all year round.
Okay, so it's a little more complex than like just setting up a few nets and talking your fingers.
It's more than just that. It's an entire system.
Right.
You've got the collection, you've got storage, you've got to think about your piping infrastructure, and then how you're going to distribute that water, these distribution networks, to get that water to where it's needed.
Yeah.
So there are complexities for sure, but the potential benefit, I mean, they're just immense.
I mean, especially when you think about climate change, the challenges of climate change.
Absolutely.
And the need for resilient water solutions.
Yeah, I mean, fog harvesting really could be transformative.
Yeah.
Especially as we think about the future, where water scarcity it's only going to become more and more of a problem.
Right.
But it's really important to understand that it's not about replacing traditional water management.
Gotcha.
It's about adding to it. It's another tool we can use to try to make sure there's enough water for everyone.
So it's about having a diverse set of solutions.
Exactly.
And, adapting those solutions to each region, to the specific needs of each region.
Yeah, I agree.
This deep dive it's really highlighting the innovative thinking and the adaptability that we're going to need.
It is.
To tackle these global water challenges.
I agree completely. And it's all about pushing those boundaries, what's possible.
Yeah.
Like looking for solutions in places where you wouldn't normally think to look.
Yeah.
And as we move forward, we need more research to really explore how we can implement this on a larger scale.
Okay.
And how to, optimize this technology, make it work for different places,
right,
different situations.
It's all about harnessing innovation, right? Yeah. And turning these challenges, these huge challenges, into opportunities.
Absolutely.
And fog harvesting it's a really fantastic example of that. So let's dive in a little deeper. I want to talk more about the potential of this fog water.
Okay.
Particularly thinking about agriculture and food production.
Let's do it. So we've talked about, the basic science.
Yeah.
And those promising results from the Alto Hospicio study.
Right.
So now let's think about how this technology could, completely change how we think about growing food.
Okay.
Especially in those arid regions where, traditional farming is so difficult.
Makes sense.
So many hurdles.
Yeah. Thinking about those arid landscapes, bursting with life. Thanks to fog. It's really exciting. I keep coming back to that figure from the study. They said 15 to 20 kilograms of leafy greens per month.
That's incredible.
Just using fog water.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not just a salad. That's a food revolution.
You're absolutely right. And the potential is huge. I mean, it goes way beyond just leafy greens.
Really?
The study suggests that fog water, because it's so pure and it has this unique mineral content, could be really, really well suited for growing all sorts of crops.
Oh, wow.
Imagine vast stretches of land that, we've always thought of as unfarmable.
Right.
Transformed into these vibrant gardens and farms.
Yeah.
All thanks to fog.
Okay, but I have to ask, how does this actually work on the ground?
Right.
When I think of farming, I picture vast fields, heavy machinery, complex irrigation systems.
Yeah.
Does fog harvesting require that same level of infrastructure and resources?
Well, that's where things get really fascinating.
Okay.
One of the coolest things about using fog water for agriculture is that it works really well with soil-free farming techniques.
Oh, okay.
So things like, hydroponics or aeroponics and, these methods, they use a lot less water.
Okay.
Than traditional farming. And you can set them up in all kinds of places, greenhouses, rooftops, even, balconies.
So we're talking about localized, efficient food production.
Yeah.
That could, you could implement that even in really dense urban areas.
Exactly.
But there's not a lot of land available.
Which is huge. I mean, that could really change things in terms of food security.
Yeah.
Not just for rural communities, but for cities as well.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
It's a really, it's captivating, it's almost futuristic.
It is.
But okay, let's be realistic. What are some of the hurdles we need to overcome to really make this a reality? These fog-powered urban farms and gardens.
Right. Well, as with any new technology, there are going to be some challenges.
Yeah.
The initial costs, like to set up a hydroponic or an aeroponic system, can be a barrier, especially for, lower income communities.
Right.
And there's definitely a learning curve. It takes time to master these techniques.
Yeah.
So making sure people have access to training, to the resources they need,
Right.
that's going to be essential.
So it sounds like it's not just about the water itself.
Yep.
It's about creating this whole like ecosystem of support.
Exactly.
The education, the infrastructure,
Yeah.
and the ongoing assistance for people who are trying to adapt and learn these new approaches to agriculture.
It is. It's about empowering people.
Yeah.
Giving them the tools, giving them the knowledge to really thrive in a world that's changing so rapidly.
It's about like making them stewards of their own food systems.
Exactly. And that's where collaboration comes in.
Right.
Researchers, policymakers, NGOs, and of course the local communities themselves.
Right.
They all need to work together.
And speaking of collaboration, I remember reading about using fog water for reforestation.
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So fog water isn't just for drinking. It can actually help revitalize entire ecosystems.
Wow.
So in a lot of arid regions, deforestation and land degradation have led to desertification,
Right.
loss of biodiversity. But fog water, because it's so gentle and it's delivered so consistently,
Yeah.
it can be a real lifeline for struggling trees and vegetation.
So instead of using those harsher irrigation systems,
Yeah.
which sometimes, they can cause more problems than they solve.
Exactly. Fog harvesting, it's more natural. It's a more sustainable way to try to restore these landscapes that have been degraded.
So it's not just about like, greening cities, but potentially like greening entire regions.
It is. It's about bringing life back to these areas that have been, devastated by drought and desertification.
Wow.
And the benefits, they go way beyond just the way it looks.
Yeah.
Reforestation helps prevent soil erosion. It improves water infiltration.
Uh-huh.
It creates habitats for all kinds of plants and animals. And it even helps mitigate climate change by, absorbing that carbon dioxide from the atmosphere.
So it's a really holistic solution.
It is, yeah.
It feels like we're talking about like this cascade of positive impacts.
Yeah.
From water security to food production to ecosystem restoration.
I think fog harvesting is a key that unlocks, all of these other solutions.
Yeah.
It's really remarkable.
It is remarkable. So I guess when we zoom out and we think about fog harvesting in the context of climate change,
Right.
Where does it fit in?
Well, I think it's a really powerful example of climate adaptation.
Okay.
Recognizing that our planet is changing
Yeah.
and finding new ways to work with nature rather than against it
Yeah.
to make sure, we can all thrive.
It's about embracing solutions that are both resilient and sustainable.
Absolutely.
Recognizing that we need to adapt.
We do.
Rather than trying to hold on to these old ways of doing things that just don't work anymore.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
It's about changing our mindset, shifting from this idea of scarcity and fear to one of abundance and opportunity.
I like that.
Yeah. Even in the face of climate change, there are solutions,
Yeah.
There's hope.
Yeah.
And we have the power to create a much better future for everyone.
Yeah.
But even with something like fog harvesting, as amazing as it is, we need to really think about the social and ethical implications,
Right.
to make sure it's implemented responsibly.
That's a really great point. And that's actually a perfect segue into the final part of our deep dive today.
Okay.
Let's shift our focus to those really crucial social and ethical considerations.
Yeah, let's do it.
So how do we make sure that this technology, that it benefits everyone,
Right.
especially the people who need it most?
Exactly.
What are the impacts going to be on local communities, on traditional practices?
All important questions.
Stay tuned, because we're going to get into all of that in our final segment. Okay, so we've really gone deep on the science behind fog harvesting and, its potential to really like change agriculture and even like bring those ecosystems back to life. But now it's time to talk about something really crucial.
Yeah.
The social and ethical side of things.
Right.
Anytime we're talking about a new technology, especially one that could impact something as basic as access to water.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's easy to get really excited about something new.
Totally.
It seems to hold so much promise.
Yeah.
But we have to make sure that the technology is used to help everyone.
Yeah.
Not just a few.
It's not just for profit.
Right, exactly, or power.
So as we kind of wrap up our look at fog harvesting, we need to ask some tougher questions.
Okay, yes.
Who benefits from this and who might be left out?
Yeah. And how can we make sure that this water, this really precious resource, is managed fairly and responsibly?
We were talking about that water crisis in Alto Hospicio.
Right.
And how fog harvesting could really be a lifeline for those communities.
Yeah.
But I keep thinking about, like, what are the potential downsides? What if this technology gets more popular and it attracts like big corporations who just want to profit from something that should really be available to everyone? I mean, we've seen that happen with natural resources over and over again.
It's a real risk. Imagine companies coming in, setting up these fog harvesting systems,
right,
and then charging like outrageous prices to the very communities that need that water the most.
That's exactly what we don't want to see happen.
Exactly. And that's why, like, from the very beginning, we need to be really clear about who owns and manages these fog collection systems.
Yeah.
How is the water distributed?
Yeah.
Are there rules in place to make sure the most vulnerable people have access first?
Yeah.
These are things we need to be talking about.
Like at a policy level.
Exactly. To prevent these same patterns from happening again.
So it's not just about the technology, it's also about the social and political structures.
Right.
We need to make sure those structures prioritize people and sustainability over profits.
I completely agree. And it's not just about, preventing companies from taking advantage.
Yeah.
We also have to think about the effects of fog harvesting on traditional water sources.
Right.
How people have been managing water for generations.
Right. They have systems in place.
They do, and these systems have worked for a long time.
Yeah.
So we can't let these new technologies disrupt those traditional systems.
Right.
It should be about working together, to complement and strengthen the systems that are already there.
So how do we find that balance, like, between this, new technology, this innovation and tradition?
Well, I think, the best solutions are often the ones that build on what's already there.
Yeah.
The knowledge and practices that have been around for a long time.
It's about empowering those communities.
Exactly.
Not taking their power away.
Yeah.
And as we start thinking about doing fog harvesting on a bigger scale,
right,
we need to pay attention to how that might affect the environment around those systems.
Absolutely. I mean, large-scale fog collection, it could have some unintended consequences.
Right.
In the ecosystem.
Yeah.
What about those plants and animals that depend on the fog? We need to do more research to understand these connections and make sure that the solutions we're creating aren't causing new problems.
It's about moving forward carefully.
It is.
With a lot of humility.
Yeah.
And really being committed to watching, to assessing.
Absolutely.
Because we don't have all the answers.
Right.
And nature it's complex.
It's very complex, and all those pieces are connected.
And there's also the cultural and spiritual side of things, right? I mean, I know in some cultures, fog might have a symbolic meaning.
It might.
Or it might be really tied to local beliefs and practices.
Exactly.
We need to make sure our technological innovation are sensitive to those values.
Absolutely.
So we're not being disrespectful.
Yeah.
Or causing harm that we didn't intend.
Technology, it's never neutral.
Right.
It always exists within a social and cultural context.
And we need to be aware of those contexts.
And we need to be sure that our solutions are not only technologically good, but also culturally sensitive and ethically responsible.
I think this has been a really fascinating conversation.
Me too.
I think we've all learned so much, not just about how amazing fog harvesting could be, but also how important it is to think carefully about any new technology.
To be willing to listen and to really commit to doing things in a way that's ethical and sustainable.
So as we wrap up our deep dive here, what is the one key message you want to leave with our listeners?
I think fog harvesting really could be an answer to water scarcity in many places.
Yeah.
But it's up to us to make sure it's done the right way.
Right.
Fairly, sustainably, and respectful to both people and the planet.
And I think if we approach this technology with an open mind and we're willing to collaborate and we really want to create a better future for everybody.
I think fog harvesting can help us create a world where everyone has access to clean, safe water.
That's a really beautiful vision.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your insights with us.
Of course, it's been a pleasure.
And to all of our listeners, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep pushing for a future where we're using innovative solutions like this to create a more just and sustainable world.